Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by Boston Hemp Inc. Saturday, May 18th. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, ready to break down the one and only Saturday Stanley Cup playoff game. And then there was one second-round series left standing, and it is the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers, Game 6 tonight. Edmonton facing elimination on home ice. We will get to that in just a moment. If you're an Oilers fan and you thought you were worried going into Game 6 tonight, you're probably even more worried about the disturbing trend that would be going against your team if things follow suit tonight in Game 6. And that is the fact that we have had three teams with opportunities to close out a series in Game 6 on the road, and all three teams in the second round have been able to do it. The New York Rangers over Carolina in Game 6 on the road, and last night, two more Game 6 road victories to close out a series, starting, of course, in Boston, where the Florida Panthers send the Bruins home after 6 games, and a 2-1 victory last night over the Bruins. A very entertaining hockey game, even though there were only 3 goals in the game. We did get Boston to score in the first period, right? We fell short with the team total, but on the Panthers, that is over 3, they only end up with 2. Can't get one into the empty net, but Panthers just one of those teams where they stick with it. Boston at the start, I kind of expected with the return of Brad Marchand last night at TD Garden. You know, use the home ice, use that emotional inspiration of having your captain back, and the Bruins played like it in the first period. But like much of this series, especially the last few games where Boston had the strong start, Florida got better, Florida got stronger as the game went on. It ended up being a situation where I thought in the first period, the second period, the Bruins did a pretty good job of making life difficult to get a clean, clear look at the net early on, but Florida was getting better and better progressively at doing that. They catch a bit of a break on their tying goal. It was a beautiful, by the way, goal for Boston in the first. Zacha's backhander on the breakaway was a thing of beauty for a guy that's, not had his best playoffs by any stretch. And then the Florida goal, kind of a tough break for a guy that had a hell of a game. And actually, I was wondering if his dad, Louis DeBrusque, was watching. Not only was he watching, he was in attendance. He was in the building last night at TD Garden. They showed him on the broadcast last night. And Jake DeBrusque had a hell of a game. It was a tremendous assist to Zacha on the Boston goal. And then he was blocking shots left and right. He was good defensively as well away from the puck. Unfortunately for him, he blocks a shot, and then it ends up going to Verhaeghe. He pokes the puck past DeBrusque, who's down and shaken up after blocking the shot. It goes right to the stick of Anton Lundell, and I don't think Swayman was ready for it, and he pounds it home past Swayman, and Lundell ties the game at 1. And then in the third period, it was kind of Boston had their chances. That's the one thing about this series, and you go back to the loss in Game 4 when they were up 2-0 and couldn't hold the lead, and they had chances there to maybe put that game away. Same thing last night when that game was 1-1. You can't act like Boston didn't have any chances. They did. But the puck was just not going in for them. And eventually we thought looked like we were going to get to overtime, but Gustav Forsling had other ideas. It was a sneaky shot, but at the end of the day, and I don't think Swayman saw all of it, but man, still you'd like to see your goalie stop it. And I'll say this about Swayman. It's heartbreaking to see that be the game-winning, series-ending, and season-ending goal that goes past him after the incredible playoffs he had. And yeah, he's going to probably get some criticism for giving up that goal. It wasn't the best goal for him to give up, but let's be truthful here. Are the Boston Bruins even standing to talk about a Game 6 against the Florida Panthers in the second round without Jeremy Swayman? I don't think they are. You can make a case they're not even getting past Toronto in the first round without Jeremy Swayman. So he was phenomenal. Tough way to end the season for the Bruins, losing in the last couple minutes of the third period like that. But Florida advances in a very bitter, contentious, intense, physical, and I mean physical. I mean, it was an incredible physical series. And you got to wonder if Florida will use every day at their disposal that they have to replenish and rehabilitate themselves prior to Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final with the Rangers on Wednesday. That series will begin Wednesday. We'll get into that. We'll save that for during the week. We'll definitely get into it quite a bit. But all I'll say about Florida and the Rangers on paper is, holy shit, is that going to be potentially a ripper, as the Aussies would say? That's what it could be. It could be one hell of a series coming up in the East between the Rangers and the Panthers. Definitely looking forward to it. As for Boston, look, Jimmy Murphy said it right, and he knows this team. He covers this team. A lot of Bruins fans upset, and, this team, here we go again. You weren't supposed to get this far this year necessarily because there's so many changes. You lost Bergeron and Krejci in the offseason. The center ice position is definitely an area where they've got to improve, get a little more depth, get a little more quality, maybe add another bottom six forward with some punch. I think their blue line is fine. They could always upgrade, but I do like their blue line. Don't forget about how those young kids came along, especially Mason Lowryda. He's a low rider. Mason Lowry. He really showed glimpses of being a pretty damn good NHL defenseman. So you're probably going to have him for a full season at the NHL level next year. I think at this point in time, you've got to part ways with Linus Ullmark, and I expect Boston to do that because I think trading him will free up, the opportunity to improve other parts of the team, center ice position, depth forward, another good defenseman. You'll be able to get a really good player or players back in return, maybe even some draft capital as well if you decide to trade Linus Ullmark in the offseason. Because I think, Alex, we now have seen that it's going to be Jeremy Swayman as the guy going forward, I think, in net here for the Boston Bruins. So, like I said, it'll be a busy offseason for the Bruins. They have money to spend, by the way. They are going to have money to spend. They're not a salary cap hamstrung hockey team. So if you're Boston, you're just a Bruin fan. You're disappointed you're out in the second round, but you got further than you did last year with that utter disappointment in the first round after that all-time great regular season, and you have money to spend. You saw Mason Lowry, some young pieces on defense improve. Just bolster the center ice position. You got a good coach and a good coaching staff. It's a good winning culture. There's lots to be still optimistic about for the Bruins going into next season. But Alex, thoughts on Panthers wrapping things up?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a fantastic series, and happy once again to catch another series winner as well. But just good old-fashioned playoff hockey. Like there was a lot of vitriol. There was just a lot of battles, and it made for just a great entertaining series to watch, no matter what side you were rooting for. That's the thing. You want to just see good hockey this time of year. And obviously it's tough. Like to the Bruins fans, obviously another disappointing end after a really good regular season. But like you said, they don't have to rebuild. All they have to do is retool, and they have the space to retool. They know what players they can move forward with, what players they can move on from. They're in a much better situation than a lot of these other playoff teams that have some really big question marks that they'll have to answer and turn around and try to be ready in the same spot heading into October. So definitely wouldn't hang my head too low if I'm a Bruins fan today. But Florida, I mean, what can you say about this team? Second straight year now going to the conference finals, and just what a turnaround for this franchise as a whole. This is a franchise that seemed dead in the water 10 years ago. Talking about possibly moving them somewhere, and now here they are with a sturdy fan base, a loyal fan base that they've built now, and they have a quality team. And that's the thing. That's what cities need to realize. Franchises need to realize when you build a great team, the fans will come and they will stick around and show up and show their support. So kudos to them getting to this point again. But now they got a tough battle ahead with the New York Rangers, and I think this is going to be an absolute dogfight. I can tell you guys now. I already mentioned on the Betcast, but I will be on the 6-game, 7-game split again in that series. I think that one it definitely goes long, but we'll talk more about it, of course, before Game 1 on Wednesday night.
I think it's just incredible. You're able to get plus money prices, the likes of which you're able to get with Rangers Panthers to go 6-7. So every series in the second round goes 6-7. In some series, I thought had a lesser chance of being as competitive as I think a Rangers Panthers series would be.
Right, and the prices haven't adjusted much. I got it at plus 195 to go 10 and 6, plus 190.
Like 5 cents of adjustment, maybe.
So the theory still works.
No doubt. That's what it feels like. It feels like 6-7 games all the way. Fill in the blank who you think wins the series, but I definitely think it's going 6 minimum, and should be a great series with the Rangers and the Panthers,
and especially with the refs too. You got
Yes,
the rest
exactly.
of we're not going right into the series starting game one on a Monday or Tuesday.
Yep.
These teams will have some rest, like I said, much needed rest for both these clubs, of course. So I think that little bit of time off keep this fresh enough to where they can last the duration of this coming up series.
I've also never seen a head coach have more fun at the podium on the mic in the post-game press conferences, and I'm not sure I've had more fun watching and listening to a coach in a post-game press conference in a series than Paul Maurice. By the way, I mean he looked like he was having a whale of a time in this series, and he was funny, he was engaging, and I love what he said at the end of the series. He gave Boston their due respect at the end of the series, even though there was a lot of ill feelings between the two teams, and he said, "I would pay money 82 times. And if it was the Bruins and the Panthers in all 82 games of the regular season, you say I'd pay money to see it each and every time." It's 100% right. It was hard. He said, and he made this great statement too. It's everything you love about hockey. It's a dose of skill. It's great goaltending. It's physical. It's violent. It's nasty. It's like a war zone down there. And it's everything that makes the sport beautiful, he said. I mean, he's so good with words, this guy.
He is.
Yes.
He is. And now you know what? Now we have an officially a new rivalry too. I kind of talked about that. I was mentioning like Minnesota, Vegas, and I mentioned a couple of things earlier. But the league tries to manufacture these rivalries at times, and they go by location and different things. But when you see a natural-born rivalry start, that's always amazing. I think about Vancouver, Chicago in the early 2010s. The Pittsburgh, Washington was kind of a manufactured rivalry. Of course, it was Crosby and Ovechkin, but that turned into real animosity, over time with the playoff series. But now Boston, Florida, we always just said Florida's rivals Tampa Bay. I think Florida's biggest rival now might actually be the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean that rivalry. That's 2 years. This is how rivalries are born. You play each other, obviously, back-to-back years and long, tough, and animosity-filled playoff series. And that's exactly what we've seen with the Bruins and the Panthers the last 2 years. I want to say something, too, about Paul Maurice. I love the guy. Alex has all the respect in the world, too, for Paul Maurice as a head coach. We think the world of him. We think he's one of the best coaches to listen to after a game in any press conference. We know he's fourth in the all-time head coaching wins list, okay? There's only 3 ahead of him. The all-time greatest coach in the history of the NHL and all of sports, maybe even Scotty Bowman, at number 1, and probably nobody's catching him in his 1,244 wins. I think we're at the point that's untouchable. I don't think that's going to be something that's eclipsed. But then you've got Quenneville at 969, you've got Barry Trotz at 914, and then there's Paul Maurice at 869 as far as all-time head coaching wins. I will say this right now. The only thing he's missing is a Stanley Cup from his great head coaching career. And if he gets it, he's in the Hall of Fame. It's that simple. It's lock, stock, and barrel. He might even still get in without the cup, but he wins a cup. He's 100% in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame coach at that point. No doubt about it. He might even be in already with just how many wins he's had, how many different teams he's coached and had success with. The Hartford/Carolina. Remember, he was the coach when they started, when they were in Hartford. Then he went with the team to Carolina. The only really team that he had a tough time with and very little success was Toronto because they were rebuilding at the time. Then he went to Winnipeg, and we know there was a great run there to a Western Final one year, of course. And now here he is with Florida, Stanley Cup Final last year, back-to-back conference finals. Not to mention, don't forget about the Stanley Cup Final he went to with Carolina in 2002 when he was a very young coach against Detroit that year. No one was beating Detroit probably that year. They ran into the last Bowman year, by the way, before he retired, 2002.
And keep in mind, with last year's Florida run and that 0-2 Carolina, those are 2 of the most improbable Eastern Conference runs to win the East. He has both of them. So, like you said, his resume is strong. He wins the Cup. He's the first ballot Hall of Famer. But I think he's already kind of a Hall of Famer at this point.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I think so too. Like if I had a vote, if I'm like in the Lanny McDonald, Mike Gartner position, and I've got a say on the Hockey Hall of Fame selection committee, he's already in, Paul Maurice, but he definitely would be. Obviously, if they go all the way here, the Florida Panthers. Speaking of going all the way, the Dallas Stars, baby, they get a big step closer to going all the way. They finish off the Colorado Avalanche, not without stress, not without some absolutely ridiculous developments during that game, which we'll get to in a moment. But look, Jake Ottinger proved his worth last night because for about 30 minutes, first period, and I think the first half of the second period, I'm watching that game and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here, fellas? And I'm talking about Dallas. You guys do know you can win a series tonight, right? Right? Do you get it? Do you understand that? Can you screw in, please, and figure this out? That you actually can win a series? You can advance to the Western Conference Final if you win this damn hockey game tonight? Because in the first 30 minutes, like the first half of the game, it didn't look like it. I mean, they could barely generate any. It was 5 shots on goal in the first period for Dallas. I mean, it was just absolutely they got outplayed definitely by Colorado, and I did expect Colorado to carry the play. Look, they're at home, they're facing elimination, but I definitely thought that Dallas would have a little bit better of a start than that. And then in the second period, again, they get into penalty trouble, and that's frustrating because going back to Game 5, they gave up 2 power play goals. A penalty occurs, and right away that 1 power play, Colorado strikes. Mikko Rantanen gives them the 1-0 lead. And at that time, look, there was nothing really to like about Dallas's game. They took a penalty. They couldn't kill it. Their penalty killing, all of a sudden was struggling. And I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. And the building's into it. Colorado's still carrying the play. Then all of a sudden, Dallas had some good shifts in the offensive zone. And by the way, then in the midst of that bad stretch that Dallas was having, and I still feel this way, Craig Smith, man, I've seen enough. Like I get the negative stuff out of the way right now with Dallas because there's obviously lots of positive coming.
Right.
But I've seen enough of Craig Smith, man. He's missing a million chances. He had a nice little easy tape-to-tape pass that he could have made right inside of the blue line, and he took a horrible pass way behind his line mate there. Ends up being a turnover, goes the other way, great scoring chance for Columbus. So at that moment, I'm like, that's enough. All right. He's got a million chances. It's Ty Dellandrea time on that fourth line in Game 1 now of the Western Final, if I were Peter DeBoer. But I think now because they won, they'll probably keep him in there more than likely. But I don't know. It's just that frustrated me at that time. But then all of a sudden we get past the halfway mark, and all of a sudden you're seeing multiple good shifts in a row from the Dallas Stars, and they're starting to swing the momentum a little bit. They're starting to test Georgiev a little bit. And you look at a situation where, finally they were testing him. They were getting in the offensive zone. They finally got a power play. And even though it was still 1-0 Colorado at the end of the second period, I felt so much better about where Dallas was at the end of the second period of that game. I said, you know what? That final 5 to 10 minutes was absolutely outstanding. And that was better from Dallas. And so I jumped on Dallas to score the next goal at plus 130 in the second. I just felt it in my bones. Like Dallas is starting to get their game together here down the stretch of the second period. And sure enough, barely a few minutes into the third, what a beautiful goal by the captain, Jamie Benn. Outstanding. It was obviously a breakdown defensively by Colorado. Couldn't stay with him. And he makes a beautiful deep move to get the puck in and around and past Alexander Georgiev for the 1-1 tying goal. And I was hoping that would carry Dallas momentum even further, build on that, score another one maybe quickly, but it didn't happen. And look, Georgiev deserves some credit here for as much as people have ripped on him and shit on him and just giving him all kinds of grief for a really, really rough end of the regular season. Everyone's going to remember the nightmare Game 1 that he had against Winnipeg in the first round. But really since that time, he had gotten gradually better. And he would, I can't even remember the last time he's given up a truly awful goal, quite honestly, in the playoffs. Alexander Georgiev, he deserves a lot of credit. I think he showed me something. He showed some guts. He showed some toughness mentally, because I'm sure he heard the whispers from around that how bad it was for him and how bad he was playing for a period of time there. And I thought he played a hell of a game in a losing effort last night, Georgiev. Some saves he made in the third period because Dallas was really starting to carry it in the third period. They really were, and Colorado was kind of just hanging around, hanging in there, just trying to get that game to overtime. So they do get out of the third period, not without a couple of close chances. It gets to overtime. Overtime, kind of back and forth. Dallas did carry it much of the first overtime, but when Colorado got their chances, man, they got some good ones. And my goodness, Jake Ottinger had to make a couple of good ones in the third period to keep the game going, or in the first overtime, I should say, to keep the game going. So then we get past the first half of the overtime, and it's starting to look like, it could be a while. But then off the face-off, Dallas scores a goal, and we think it's this game winner and the series winner. But hold on now, called no goal on the ice. And they go to the video replay center in Toronto, and you knew they would. And look, right away, it was so quick developing, and I didn't see the contact clearly on the live look. And all I saw was no goal being signaled. So they went to replay. And right away when I knew it was no goal, I'm like, and then I'm looking at the replay and I'm like, holy shit, that should be a goal. And if you look at it on replay, Duchesne is pushed into contact with Alexander Georgiev. He is clearly pushed by Colorado. That was a Makar, right?
Yep, Makar.
Yeah, Makar to Duchesne, clearly into Georgiev. There's no question about it. There's no gray area in my mind that was definitely contact initiated by the opposing team, by Cale Makar pushing Matty Duchesne in to Alexander Georgiev in that play. And when that happens and a goal is scored, the goal should stand. And I've seen it stand before when the contact is initiated by the other team. So I'm thinking, okay, that's got to be a goal. That absolutely has to be a goal. And then, of course, minutes upon minutes. And the more minutes that went by, I was getting more worried it was not going to be called a goal. And sure enough, the call on the ice stood, no goal. And this is absolutely horseshit, in my opinion. Absolute bullshit that this was no goal. Absolute horseshit. This was clearly that Makar pushed Duchesne into Alexander Georgiev. Clearly. Like, there's no gray area. There's no, okay, well, you know what? Maybe he leaned in to Alexander Georgiev. Not to mention that before Cale Makar pushed Matt Duchesne into Georgiev, he was outside of the crease. His skates weren't in the blue paint. His skates weren't in the crease. That was Georgiev meeting the outside part of the crease to try to stop that shot. That's what that was. So obviously, and we were saying this before the show started, the crease clearly doesn't matter. Why do we even have blue fucking paint on the ice to show what the goal crease is anymore? Because obviously it doesn't matter because we're not adhering to it in our rules and our replay determinations. I mean, it's just, and then to call that no goal, it shows me as well, no balls, no guts from the NHL and the replay center to have the guts. I get it. This is a goal that can end a series and end a season. I get that. I understand that. I get that's not an easy decision to make, but you got to get the call right. I don't care what the circumstances are. I don't care that it's going to end a team's season. Fuck that. You've got to get the call right, and you've got to make it right. You got to make the right call in that situation. And there is no way you can look me in the eyes with a straight face and tell me that was the right call. It's a horrendous call. It's an absolutely horrific call in that situation. And to me, the NHL ended up being way too chicken shit to make the right call. That's what it came down to me. They didn't want any part of, ending a series on a call like that, even if it was the right call. And that's unfortunate because the call should be made right, or you should make the right call 100% of the time, regardless of the circumstances of the game or the series. And we didn't see that last night. I couldn't believe it at the time. And look, there were a lot of people that had no rooting interest in that game that I saw on social media. They weren't Avs fans. They weren't Stars fans. They were just watching the game. And a lot of those people said Stars got robbed there in that situation, that was no goal. So I couldn't believe it. I was apoplectic, quite honestly, at that moment. Like I was a little bit agitated because, look, these are significant futures positions I've got here on the Dallas Stars. I'm sure Alex is in the same boat too. Like, we weren't happy. This was totally absurd that was no goal. But you got to keep playing. It's kind of like, that's what I kind of reminded myself. I was angry, but you know what? You got to keep watching, Ian. Just put it behind you. If you're Dallas, you got to keep playing. And that's what I loved about the Dallas Stars after that goal was disallowed. They kept playing. They kept playing. They took it to Colorado all over again after that goal was disallowed. And at the end of the first overtime, it kind of felt Colorado fortuitous to keep the game going, even not just because of the disallowed goal, but because of what followed after that. Dallas had a couple of tremendous chances to end the game. So we get to the second overtime. And again, Dallas is probably carrying the play a bit. That being said, there was those 5 minutes a few minutes before the overtime winner from Duchesne, where Colorado had a couple of phenomenal chances. And Jake Ottinger, man, huge. And one save in particular, it was larceny for him that he robbed Lehkonen in that second overtime to keep the game going and give Dallas a chance. And sure enough, as we often see in sports, whether it's football, ball don't lie, basketball, ball don't lie. Well, it goes to hockey as well. Oftentimes, when you get jobbed, you get screwed, something goes against you that shouldn't, the puck don't lie. And last night, the puck don't lie, baby, because the guy who was called for that interference, that sham of a call on Alexander Georgiev, and the former member of the Colorado Avalanche, Matt Duchesne, ends the game and ends the series in the second overtime, 2-1 Stars, even busted out the old Patrick Kane heartbreaker celebration as well in that one. I'm sure that felt good, right? Former team, didn't work out there with him. They were bad when he was there, if you remember, Matt Duchesne. They weren't a very good hockey team. So to win the series in that building where he played so many games early in his career against his old team, what a moment. And it's the guy that obviously got called for a goalie interference. 2-1 Dallas. They advance to the Western Conference Final, second straight year. We're 4 wins away from a Dallas Futures bet. Congratulations to our good friends of the show now. We've met them over the last 4 or 5 months, Matt and Ryan Robinson. I know they're very, very happy Dallas Stars fans on this Saturday, and why wouldn't you be? You're on to the Western Conference Final. And like I said, I think in the overtimes, Alex, their depth showed up. The longer it went, it was still going to be advantage Dallas because they can roll 4 lines. Jared Bednar was putting all his eggs in the McKinnon line basket and maybe a little bit of the second line, but you didn't see much of the third line. Did we see Cogliano much in the overtimes? No, we did not. They were loading up that big line especially and running them into the ice, whereas Dallas was still rolling 4 lines pretty well in those overtimes. They have greater depth on the blue line, and it showed. And then, of course, Jake Ottinger, who made the saves when he had to. And like I said, the deeper team and the better team eventually won out, and the Dallas Stars end up going to the Western Conference Final. And something else I'll say, because I mentioned it to our DM group on Twitter last night, it's worth mentioning. If you're the Dallas Stars last night, I hope you did something special for Chris Tanev. This guy, man, I'm telling you, what a fucking warrior that this guy is. It's unbelievable. He had 9 blocked shots last night alone in Game 6. 9. His shot block prop was 3.5. He had 9 shots blocked last night. 9 blocked shots, Chris Tanev. For the series, he had 29. 29 blocked shots in the entire series for Chris Tanev. I'm sure by now, and we already know he's missing teeth, but he's got ankles busted and toes and feet busted from blocking all these shots. If you're Dallas, you get that man a female massage therapist, and you let her give him the old pat down because he's earned it after that series. He has been just outstanding, and he's really the piece to me. You can talk about, look, Wyatt Johnston's emergence, huge. Jamie Benn showing up in the playoffs, the best playoffs he's had by far with the Dallas Stars, huge. The contributions of some of the depth players, huge. Jake Ottinger and net, huge. The coaching, huge. But I will say this, if they go the distance and they get this done, the one piece to put them over the top, in my opinion, is Chris Tanev. Because he has been a fucking pillar of strength. He has been a road grader in front of the net for the Dallas Stars in these playoffs. Good luck getting pucks past that guy, because he's just that fucking fork in the road that ain't going to let it happen. And he has been absolutely brilliant defensively, killing plays in the defensive zone over and over again, blocking shots, getting the puck out of trouble and harm's way. And when he gets the chance to clear it out of the zone, when do you see him fan on the shot? When do you see him turn it over? Never. He's been absolutely beyond outstanding for Dallas in these playoffs. Like I said, he could be the piece that puts them over the top. Great win for Dallas, Alex. They're moving on.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's funny. Somebody was saying it before the overtime even started, that this is one of those games that you see replayed on NHL Network, just an absolute back and forth kind of a classic. And it was for the first 60 minutes. And then you have 2 overtimes to add on to that. But, like I said, we were kind of looking at the same thing. When you jumped in and grabbed Dallas next goal plus 130. I actually grabbed Dallas money line. I had Dallas money line plus 275 at that point when they were down 1-0. So I figured, like I said, the momentum was about to switch as they were kind of just gradually getting better and better, which the irony of that is that's usually how Colorado plays. Like, that was Colorado's MO all season long. We cashed live tickets left and right in the second and third periods of Colorado games where they were down, where they had to come back because they just gradually got better as the game went on, and they ended up winning the game in regulation or an OT or a shootout. So for Dallas to really match and play their style of hockey, but also keep to their own accord, like you said, playing better defense, having shot blockers like Chris Tanev, which said the pickup of the deadline for sure, and the fact that Jim Nill didn't have to give up a first-round pick to get him is, somebody said on Twitter, a masterclass in general managing. That's something that needs to be remembered, that you can make some good moves and get some good players without having to just completely sell off the farm. But having those guys standing up and playing their game, and what I said on the BetCast, for those of you who watched it, I said Jake Oettinger has to have a legacy game. I said this needs to be there's career-defining games, and Jake Oettinger understood the assignment last night. He made a bunch of 10-bell saves in the third period and in both overtimes, kept his team in the game when it mattered the most. And that's the Jake Oettinger that we've been talking about for the majority of the last couple of years. When we say that this kid's a top 5 goaltender in the league, it's games like that that will last his career and define his legacy. Everybody played well. I mean, you go with the call with the Duchesne thing, and like I said, we've been talking about this left and right. What is goaltender interference? These goalies are as big as they've ever been. They're more athletic. They're more agile. They can make saves on a whole lot of plays now that they simply could not 20 years ago. That being said, what quantifies the contact? Can the goalie come this far out of the crease and then create contact, and now that's the interference? Players pushing into one another, that's got to be something that has to be called and viewed more. There's so many angles and options that have to be reviewed, and just can't wait for the CBA.
That have to be clarified in black and white, and it has to be adhered to.
It has to be, and it has to be done now. This needs to be done as soon as this season ends. We need a rewrite and an official clarification of what goaltender interference is before the puck drops in October. It's plain and simple, because we've had too many of these calls. Like I said, to have a call like that define a series, yes, that's a tough call for the league to make. That's a tough call for these referees to make. God knows the referees, they still got to get the fuck out of Denver. If you make that call, and that's a good goal, and that's the end of the series. So you understand the hesitation, but at the same time, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's the right call, you make the right call. They simply did not make the right call in that spot. And to have all these cameras and have all this review, and we all can see it on fucking ESPN, on TNT rather. Y'all can't see that right there with all the cameras and iPads in the world. That's crazy. So something's got to be done with that. But like you said, once we saw that be a no-goal, like I said, the old adage, pucks don't lie. And I never felt in any way like this was going to be a game that Dallas was going to lose it from that point on. Even as it went to the second overtime, because like you said, the depth angle is all on Dallas' side. And Colorado had already been skating their top players heavy minutes in the last game, heavy minutes in regulation of this game. Those guys were going to start to wear down, and sure enough, they made the sloppy plays. They weren't making the crisp passes, especially in the second overtime. The passing was really sloppy by Colorado, and that's what ended up leading to those spots for Dallas. And like I said, Matt Duchesne, that's like a true ending in karma fashion for him to not only be the guy that was in the way to get the goal, but then to get the goal in Colorado, in a building that he played in for years, where they were going through all of their ups and downs, and for him to be shuffled back and forth through all these different places at his career, to now be going on to the Western Conference Final and doing it in that fashion, that had to feel really good for him. So kudos to the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final. And like I said, now tonight we got one more team looking to punch their ticket, and one more team hoping they can do it in a couple of days.
No doubt. It was, like I said, we're down to just one series left. Again, I just want to mention, we've talked a lot about Dallas, and obviously this is a team that is they're 8 wins away from the Stanley Cup, and they absolutely feel like a team that can do it right now. 100%. They absolutely feel like a team that can do it and win it all. Doesn't mean they're going to, but they definitely have the feel of a team that can get the job done. Colorado, tons of things to iron out in the offseason.
Yeah.
There's even people talking as Jared Bednar going to be back, believe it or not, for the Avs. But I don't know if they're going to get rid of him this quickly. I think it would take one more year where they're kind of bounced early. Maybe
he has a warm seat.
Yeah,
he has a warm seat.
Yeah, but he is. The seat's warming, on him. He's not on the hot seat yet, but the seat's warming. But the bottom line is, let's call it like we see it. Valnichushkin screwed his team. He really did. He stabbed them in the back. And look, I get it. He's got issues, and I wish him well. I truly do, personally. I've got nothing against him. I wish him well. I want him to sort out his life. I want him to get back on track and back on his feet again. But he completely sewered his hockey team and every teammate and every player in that dressing room. He stabbed them in the back because he screwed up again. He fucked up again. When he probably promised the team, you know what, I've learned my lesson. I'm ready for change. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to not let you guys down again. I'm sure he gave them that whole spiel after last year and with everything that went on during the Seattle series that year. And then to let them down again and fail again. And that's why I think the feelings were so raw and bitter, from so many of the players when they were talking about it after that Game 4 loss where Colorado looked comatose, on the ice. That they were just so they want the best for him. They care about him still, but they are also, so angry and so, livid at what he has done because they know how important he is to the team. He's like the second best forward on the team after McKinnon. But you can make a case for Rantanen being number 2 when he plays well, but he's that important. Like that was double-digit playoff goals out of your lineup. All of a sudden going into Game 4 and you weren't getting them back, and that completely changed the complexion of opportunity for Colorado, and they knew it, that we are not even close to as good a hockey team without Val Nichushkin, and he caused this and he brought this on us, and that's hard to reconcile. That it really is when you're trying to win another Stanley Cup. So we'll see. What I think they've got to part ways at this point. They just do. You got to let you part ways. It's obviously a guy that was important to this team, but you can't let this go unpunished, if you will, and you got to let him finish and get right, get well away from the team. So that's just the way it has to be. As far as the lineup currently, there's still lots to like. I think there's still a little depth. They definitely need to look at the bottom 6. This bottom 6, which was, I think, a force for Colorado when they won the Cup 2 years ago. You didn't get enough from it. You just didn't. This year, not enough punch from that bottom 6. You asked too much of McKinnon and Lehkonen and Rantanen throughout this series, and Makar on the blue line. You do need to look at a few things. I think there's some pieces on the blue line I like. I like Sam Girard. I like Sean Walker fit in pretty well when they got him from Philadelphia. So, but again, they've got to look at the bottom 6 and improving that, getting a little more depth there, in my opinion, as well. And obviously, it goes without saying the goaltending. And look, I know Alexander Georgiev, it went a long way to helping his cause the way he played after that bad Game 1. But is that a guy that you can say we can absolutely run it back with him as the bona fide number 1 goalie next year? I don't think you can say that still if you're Joe Sakic and the Colorado Avalanche. So, again, that is something that Joe Sakic's going to have to look at in the offseason as well. And I would be remiss, Alex, if I didn't mention that we might have seen the last of Andrew Cogliano. He was hinting at possible retirement in his post-game press conference last night, and we know that we have indeed seen the last of Zach Parise, who has already announced that this would be his final season. Great career, Stanley Cup final appearance with New Jersey, and the head coach that he lost to last night, Peter DeBoer. And what a great moment that was. Peter DeBoer and Zach Parise, you could tell. Great respect. They were player and coach together in New Jersey. The year they got to the Cup final, they lost to one of those juggernaut LA Kings teams that won multiple Stanley Cups last decade. That's how close DeBoer and the Devils with Zach Parise on the team got, that year as far as the Stanley Cup is concerned, that close to winning it. Great career, obviously. And obviously New Jersey, much of it, Minnesota, a long time there with the Wild as well. I know a lot of playoff shortcomings and falling short in the playoffs, but you can not say the one thing you can't say about Zach Parise is he didn't work hard. And everyone says he was always a very hard-working player. It was a very long, lengthy career. When you can go as long as he did in the NHL, You had yourself one heck of a career. So all the best to Zach Parise in life after hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, people here in Minnesota may not share that same sentiment. Things were kind of tedious at the end of his tenure here. And of course,
I know one in
obviously,
particular that already feels that way. Terry.
and the money albatross that came with him leaving as well has left a sour taste in people's mouths. But he was a wonderful hockey player, and like I said, by most accounts, a really good guy as well. So definitely best wishes to him. And if it is for the end for Andrew Cogliano too, my God, what a run! One of the true Iron Men of this league. You couldn't ask for a harder worker to be on your team than Andrew Cogliano, a guy who just sacrificed himself night in and night out, didn't take a shift off, didn't take a game off. Those are two greats that we watched throughout the last decade and a half, possibly hanging it up. But yeah, for Colorado, like you mentioned, a lot of things they got to sort out. And, I wasn't on when the Val Nichushkin news broke, and obviously, like I said, there's been issues and different things. There's been different stories floating around. I'm not going to speculate on anything like that. I do find it interesting, though, in this time and age in the NHL, you don't have the old fixers like you used to. I did mention that I watched an old 2002, 2003 Hawks team with a Theo Fleury who failed about 32 drug tests no one knew about until he wrote his book, and yet he was able to play 58 games. So kind of interesting that if your guy's got a problem and he's that important, you think you'd have somebody that's kind of on the case watching out for those things. But
they got to hire that guy that works for the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, that got all that FaceTime and camera time last year.
Fixer. Yeah. You need a fixer. Everybody needs a fixer, but that's a conversation for another time. Point in large is that he's a missing piece, and his offense, gap that loomed large. Makar and McKinnon could only do so much, and they did everything. In this series, they did as much as they possibly could, but it just wasn't enough. Alexander Georgiev, give him a tremendous amount of credit. And I've said this the entire time that I talked about the fact that he was fatigued in the second half and even through this playoff series. I said it was never his ability. This guy was an all-star. This guy proves that he belongs as a number one goaltender in this league. That's not going to change for years to come, barring injury. The thing is, he needed help. He needed help this season, and Joe Sakic didn't go out there and get it. You should have got that in fucking September when you knew that Ivan Prosvetov wasn't shit. He came up on waivers, by the way, so that's the guy who they did end up getting. You knew Justus Annan wasn't ready. There's nothing else in the cupboard at all, goaltending-wise. You knew this shit in September and October. You didn't do anything about it then. You didn't do anything about it at the deadline, and the Crows came home to roost because this guy had to work his ass off on top of already being overworked and having the minutes lead and the games lead. And you just knew at some point it was going to be a breakdown. And if you won this series, you were probably in trouble of maybe losing in 4 or 5 games, because how much longer could he have gone on playing as well as he did, especially when the defense was breaking down from him, especially when Makar was definitely playing with an injury. I did hear that. I don't know what injury, but I'd heard from a couple people he's been playing with injury. We know Taves was out. You don't have that many great blue liners. The fact that you didn't get him help early in the year did play somewhat of a role. It wasn't as big of a role, but it still played a bit of a role why you aren't in the Western Conference Final now. Because you cannot afford, and this is a lesson for him and every other GM in this league, you have to have 2 goaltenders. You have to have 2 goaltenders in the regular season so you don't burn out your number one guy. And also, as we'll talk about in the game tonight, to have a number 2 goaltender ready. So when you have someone to fill in for that number 1 goaltender and make a move down the stretch, but you have to have it. It's imperative. We can't go with the old school 1 and 2 anymore. It has to be a 1A, 1B system for all teams if you're trying to actually compete and win a title in this league. Plain and simple. So this should now be the end of the cautionary tale. Here ends the lesson for any other team that hasn't shored up their goaltending to get 2 goaltenders moving forward.
Well said. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, we've been saying this shit all year. I mean, the goaltending was a big concern for Colorado. And then, great point, Nick. Pavel Francouz, he's medically retired from hockey. Medically. He's retired because he's had too many injuries over the years. He had abductor surgery last year.
And then his hips. The abductor and the hips. His body's just shot. His
body's fucked. He had to medically retire. So you didn't have him. Prosvetov's not good enough. Annanen's not ready. I mean, and you wore Georgiev, who's had no history of success as a number one goalie. It's amazing they did not do something to shore up goaltending depth on this team at any point this season. It's absolutely insane. And look, I love Joe Sakic as a player. Who doesn't? He's an amazing player, great man. No one says a bad word about him. But I can say a bad word about the way he managed his goaltending this year. Poorly, piss poor, in fact. And that's just the bottom line when you look at it. And Francouz, not only did he medically retire and he had abductor surgery, he was so sick and tired of being loaded up with injections and fucking meds and pain pills and all this shit. He said he was taking them day after day and it was making him miserable. That's how bad it got with Francouz. And yet the goaltending was never addressed this year. It's shocking.
And every team we talked about, so now with Colorado being eliminated, every team we talked about that needed to address the goaltending issue and didn't, ended up losing and not winning a championship. Colorado being the furthest team to make it, LA made the playoffs, but all those other teams didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. Every single year we see this. There's at least 3 or 4 teams that go, well, they need to address goaltending, and then they don't do it, and what happens? They end up losing, missing the playoffs, or getting bounced early in the playoffs.
Yeah. And obviously, look, Linus Ullmark was, Boston was listening regarding Linus Ullmark, and apparently that wasn't a move Colorado was willing to make, Edmonton. And now that's 2 hot-button teams that they're saying might be involved in a deal for Linus Ullmark. Colorado's in the mix. Will they actually get it done is the question.
They don't need to see that, and then that's overkill because you don't need Linus Ullmark.
Yeah.
What are you going to have? Linus Ullmark's the guy who could probably give you 45 games, 50 games. So is Georgiev. Do you really want to have to now you split and go with those two? You think Ullmark wants to be in another 1A, 1B situation again? Up to the magnitude of where there's question marks every year? That would be a horrible move, in my opinion. Go get a backup. Yeah. Get a backup that can play 35 games. and
the equivalent of Laurent Brossoit. Yeah.
And there's plenty of guys that qualify out there that they can grab that could fit in that spot. That's the craziest thing too. You're not trying to go out and get a number one goalie. You have that. Go get a quality backup. There's plenty of them, especially now with free agency. There's at least 10 or 12 of them that you can get that would fit that role nicely and keep Colorado's rolling as far as in the goaltending department where they had in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's the point there, Insight. That's a good point. Exactly. I mean, Kiviranta, Duhaime, Wagner. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. 3rd and 4th line for Colorado last night.
Yeah,
you got to do better than that. You got to upgrade. Simple as that. Duhaime's a nice, hard-working guy, but you got to upgrade. You need some kind of offensive punch from that group, and they didn't get enough of it at all here in these playoffs, no question. A great segue talking about a need for goaltending because we go to the Edmonton Oilers tonight, facing elimination, the one and only game here tonight on this Saturday, Game 6, Vancouver Canucks, Edmonton Oilers, and it's a chance for the Canucks to close out this series in 6 on the road, which is something that every team in this round has done. The Rangers, the Panthers, the Stars, every team up 3-2 going on the road for Game 6 has finished the series in this round. Can the Vancouver Canucks follow suit? Edmonton minus 190, home favorites. The total here sitting at 6, pretty much across the board, shaded to the over. Of course, Vancouver leading the series 3-2. So the big news is all Edmonton. We know Vancouver's probably going to have the same lineup as what we saw in Game 5. We're going to see, Soucy came back for Juleson. They made those changes up front, putting in Niels Höglander and Vasily Podkolzin up front. And now Edmonton is making some changes. I thought there were going to be more changes than what's ultimately it's going to be, but there are going to be some changes, and it looks like the one change is, and this is definitely going to be for Corey Perry, a tough pill to swallow, but it is sounding like Corey Perry is going to be a healthy scratch tonight, and in his place is going to be Adam Henrique for the Edmonton Oilers. That's a tough pill to swallow for a guy that's been, in the NHL and been, a Stanley Cup champion in the past. But I'll be honest, I don't know if I've seen Corey Perry make such little impact in the Stanley Cup playoffs as he is, especially in this series. Can you remember off the top of your head one memorable moment, a hit, a fight, something physically, an offensive play, a goal, an assist that Corey Perry's contributed to this series so far? I can't think of one.
No.
And like I say, it's tough because, this is a guy that's, been around the block. You brought him in to help you, but he's just done not much at all for the Edmonton Oilers. And it looks like he's going to be the odd man out for the Edmonton Oilers up front. And the other big change is it looks like, and I kind of predicted they would do this, they're going to turn back and trust in Stuart Skinner for Game 6 tonight in net for the Oilers. Even though Calvin Pickard played more than well enough in the last two games. Game 4, the team had a great defensive effort, I thought, for Edmonton for their goalie. So he didn't have to play great. He definitely had to be more active and busier in Game 5. He was, and he played very well in Game 5. You could argue, the only reason it was sniffing overtime before JT Miller ended it in Game 5 was because Calvin Pickard was really good, especially in that third period when the Vancouver Canucks were really starting to swarm the Oilers in their own zone. So it's back to Skinner. I don't hate this move. I'm not one of those people that was just staunch in one direction over the other as far as this decision. I said if it's Pickard, I can live with it. If it's Skinner, I can live with it too, even though he's had a tough series. And here's why. He's had a few days off. He's been your guy too. And you've got to figure out if this is a guy you can go to war with after this season. And the only way you're going to figure that out is you put him in a spot like this. You put him in a pressure cooker like this. Season on the line, neck on the line. What do you got in you, Stu? What do you got in you tonight? Can you rise up? Can you bring that hell of a performance tonight that has been missing from you so far in this series? Can you cut out the soft goal, the one per game that had been plaguing him in the first 3 games before he obviously got replaced in Game 4? Can you cut that shit out? And can you bring your best performance to the table tonight when your team needs it the most? You got to find out if this is a guy you can win a Stanley Cup with, because you've invested enough time and enough games in him the last, 2-3 seasons to try to put him in this spot where you got to find out if he's got the goods. And if this is the night where it's the Skinner that we saw in the first 3 games, he gives up a bad goal, the season ends, they lose tonight, well, then you have your answer. And now you can look elsewhere for goaltending probably next year, or at least make him a backup next year and not the number 1. That's where we're at with Skinner. But if you truly believe that, hey, we still think he's a number 1 goalie in this organization, at least the caliber of it, you've got to, and I mean got to, give him this chance, especially when the other guy is, at the end of the day, Calvin Pickard. And look, I said Pickard played solid the last 2 games, but at the end of the day, he's a 3-year-old journeyman goalie. It's been bounced around the NHL from one team to the next. You know what he is. And at some point, there's going to be bad things probably for Pickard. He's going to have that game where he's going to get shelled, especially if it goes on later on in the playoffs, for example, and you were to see a Dallas in the West Final or someone else. There's going to be that bad game around the corner. You have invested a lot of time. This guy's come up through your organization, Stuart Skinner. This is the time you got to put him in there, sink or swim with him, and see what he's got. Can he deliver the goods in the big spot? You got to find out. You've got to find out one way or another. So I agree I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this, even though he didn't play well in the first 3 games. Do you know why I'm also okay with it? Because I know there's good in Stuart Skinner. I know he can be awesome. Yeah. We saw it. When Edmonton racked up that double-digit win streak, Alex, he was at lights out. He was barely giving up more than 2 goals in any game. It was probably some of the best goaltending for a long period of time that I've seen out of Skinner. He's got it in him, but he's got to deliver it tonight, and the Edmonton Oilers have to see for themselves if he can deliver it. So I'm okay with this move. Vancouver, again, keeping the same lineup. As far as this game goes, it's very much similar sentiments to what I've said every time Edmonton's at a home game in this series. That no freaking way am I laying minus 190 with the Edmonton Oilers. But here is something I'm doing, because I do expect Edmonton's start tonight, Alex, to resemble Game 4. I really do. I've got full confidence we're going to see them flying out of the chute here tonight in Game 6, just like they were in Game 4. Remember, we were on the BetCast, Game 4, earlier this week. It was the Tuesday BetCast, and Edmonton was flying early. They got the Leon Draisaitl power play goal, 1-0. I believe it was 1-0 after the first period. It ended 1-0 Oilers. I expect that kind of start here tonight from them. To desperation, you have to have this win. And it's worth noting, if you look at the Game 6 home teams here in the second round, and it's something that I was thinking of when I was formulating my betting opinions and decisions for this game. What do we see with Rangers Hurricanes? Game 6. Carolina facing elimination at home in Game 6. They led after the first period, 1-0. What do we see with Boston facing elimination at home in Game 6 last night against Florida? 1-0. Bruins led after the first period. What did we see with Colorado? Well, we didn't see it with Colorado. I shouldn't correct myself. It was scoreless after the first, but they got the first goal. And they had a great first period, Colorado. That's the one that it didn't work out for, as far as what I'm thinking here for this game. But they did get the first goal eventually in the second period. But the bottom line is the teams at home in Game 6 facing elimination, they came out strong. All three of them. Colorado, even though it was scoreless after the first, they were still the better team in the first period than Dallas last night. Boston was the better team in the first period than Florida, and the Carolina Hurricanes were the better team in the first period over the Rangers and led after the first 20 minutes. But none of those teams came back to win the game, or held on, I should say, to win the game. Carolina scored the first goal, lost the game. Boston scored the first goal, lost the game, Game 6 at home. Colorado scored the first goal, Game 6 at home, lost the game. So I like the Oilers' first period puck line here, -0.5. I like it. I think if you like Edmonton in any form, I know I was on with Jimmy the Bag yesterday, my usual Friday spot with him on Pub Sports Radio. He likes Edmonton -1 full game. I don't think I can get there with any full game bet on Edmonton. I don't think I can, even at home, even though they got to have it, even though they're capable of winning this like they did Game 4. I feel better about the first period. And the price is better too. You got +150 at Pinnacle for Edmonton first period puck line. So I like that. Oilers first period puck line -0.5, +150. Maybe a small sprinkle because it's juiced on the Edmonton to score a goal in the first period, but definitely the better value is -0.5, +150. And I'm also going to do a same game parlay here because I think, look, Game 4 stayed under, Game 5 stayed under. We're starting to see defense pick up here. And if there's ever a spot Edmonton's going to dig in defensively, it's tonight. They want to rally around Skinner. They do like Skinner. Skinner's a great guy. Skinner's a phenomenal person and teammate. You just listen to him. He's always ready to take the blame and the responsibility if he doesn't play well. And even if he does play all right and the team loses, he still says, yeah, I need to be better. I mean, they really respect it. He's always answering the media. He never, and it's a situation where he's done a nice job with that. He's very well liked and respected. You've got to show up for him tonight, Edmonton, and help him out. Box out. Clear the front of the net. Get the puck out. Forwards, back check, backtrack. Everyone, 5-man unit in the defensive zone. That's the way you got to be tonight for Edmonton. And I think that's the way they're going to. They showed it in Game 4. And remember, when Pickard came in replacing Skinner, they got the bump. That got their attention. That defensively, it's time to show up, boys. We got to be better and help out our goalie. And they did in Game 4. Lo and behold, they won. What was it? 3-2. That was the Bouchard goal in the final minute. And they won 3-2 in that game. That's the way it's got to be tonight. They've got to show up for Skinner, help him out. You got to hope Skinner makes the saves he should, but you got to help him out too. And just like you did with Cal Pickard in Game 4 when he came into the series, now with Skinner coming back into the series, you got to help him out and make life as easy as possible on him. So I do think this is an under game, believe it or not, here tonight, Canucks and Oilers. But here's what I'm doing with the same game parlay. It's kind of that Game 7 mentality I've had from the last round. We're going to take Vancouver +2.5 alternative handicap. So that's Vancouver +2.5 alternative handicap. We're going to take Edmonton +2.5 alternative handicap. So it's really both teams to not lose the game by more than 2 goals tonight. And why not take it? Every friggin' game in this series has been a 1-goal game. Every game in this series has been decided by 1 goal. So to me, we're at the point where these are 2 teams that are playing tight games. There's not a lot to decide between them. Take the 2.5, both sides. I can't see that not coming through. Vancouver +2.5, Edmonton +2.5, and then take your pick. I've got a little bit of both. I've got Vancouver +2.5, Edmonton +2.5, under 7.5, -120 as a same game parlay. So it's Vancouver +2.5, Edmonton +2.5, under 7.5, -120. That's the main same game parlay I have. I have another one that's smaller.
Those are 2 separate legs, mind you, right? It's Edmonton 2.5 with the under 7.5. Vancouver 2.5 with the under 7.5, correct?
No, this is Edmonton and Vancouver plus.
Oh, you can stack those in the same game?
Stack those in the same game, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
because look, if I take out Edmonton, if I make it just Vancouver plus 2.5 and under 7.5, it's minus 155. I don't like that price.
Okay.
I don't like that price. And plus, look, neither team has lost by more than a goal in this series, more than one goal. You could even be more risky. It's like a scientist in the lab experimenting, really. You could even go plus 1.5 on both teams. That's a little more risky, but every game has been decided by one goal. So you can take your shot. I just want to be a little safer, just in case. And what if we get that empty net goal finally when a team's up by one, in the third period? Then this doesn't hurt me if I have 2.5 as the handicap instead of 1.5. So Vancouver plus 2.5, Edmonton plus 2.5, under 7.5 for the game, minus 120. And I've also got a smaller one, Vancouver plus 2.5, Edmonton plus 2.5, under 6.5, and that is plus 130. That same game parlay. I like that. I really like those two looks. I really, truly do. I think it's a great thought. It's a great approach. Haven't seen more than a one-goal margin this entire series. Plus 2.5 on Vancouver, plus 2.5 on Edmonton. Pair it with an under 7.5 to bump that total up, and you get it at minus 120. And also one with under 6.5 at plus 130. It's a great approach to me. I'd be shocked if this is a high-scoring game. And I know they're capable of it, and I know it started out high-scoring, but I just get that feeling Edmonton's going to adopt the Game 4 mentality. Go to war for your goaltender and be strong, be sound defensively, and let your offense flow from that. So those are the main bets here, those two SGPs and Edmonton first-period puck line. A minus 0.5 plus 150. Alex, what do you think? Game 6, Vancouver, Edmonton.
It's funny. We got a completely different view of, I think, how this game's going to go.
Oh, wow.
I get what you're saying with the pattern of teams that have been at home, getting the jump early, getting that first goal, and then kind of losing that lead. I think Vancouver knows that they can't fool around with the fact of being down on the road. I think they're going to play with their hair on fire early in this contest. And I think they score first in this game.
Oh, wow. Vancouver does.
And I think that's what really that's what's going to really truly test the mettle of this Oilers team if they give up the first goal here, because we've talked about it all year with the back and forth now with the goaltending. Talked about how McDavid hasn't shown up in some of these games during the playoffs. This could all come to a screeching halt here tonight. And I'm making a bold prediction here that if Vancouver jumps out to a lead early and this game is 3-0, 4-0, this ends up being a one-sided blowout where Vancouver wins and closes the series out at home, I think Edmonton presses the red button. I think we see this team get blown apart. I think this is the end of the McDavid and Draisaitl era if they lose this game in a blowout fashion tonight. Now, if they can keep it close and it's a one-goal game that goes OT, or they win and go to Game 7, that might be different. But if they get bounced here at home and it's an early, like I said, early Vancouver where they're just controlling the pace and that crowd starts getting weary and they start booing, I think we're going to see the last of this core group together here in Edmonton. And I got a feeling that might happen tonight. So I took Vancouver plus 171 overnight last night. Even at 160, I would still endorse that. And I lean a little bit with Vancouver first period money line. I haven't made that play official. I'm probably going to wait in game and try and get a little bit better of a price for Vancouver to score first. But I think they're going to come out with all the heat and pressure early and test Skinner. And here's the thing. And I saw a lot of Edmonton fans actually tweeting this in the last couple of days saying that they didn't like the fact of, okay, we're going with Pickard. They would rather run with Pickard. And I get that motivation sometimes where sometimes you go back to that goaltender and he's not necessarily fresh and ready, that he may have been rattled by making that move. And that's the thing we have to see. That's the thing you have to watch for in the first 5 minutes, the first few shots on goal that Skinner faces. Is he really sound and ready? If he's not, this thing's going to all come crumbling down early. And I think Vancouver could maybe, like I said, roll away with this one. So it's just Canucks money line for me as of right now. Any other looks I have will be in game.
All right, there we go. Very interesting, a little different viewpoint of especially the early part of the game. I'm with you on the full game, though. I am. In fact, if I win my Edmonton puck line, I'm going to be betting Vancouver live. You better, unless they're up
Yeah.
3-4 nothing, and I'd feel a
Sure.
little, and maybe I can't see them running Vancouver out like that in the first period, but I do expect a strong start, maybe a 1-0, 2-0 lead for Edmonton, 2-1. Maybe Vancouver does get on the board in the first, but and if that happens, I'll still take a shot with Vancouver live. I will, because we've seen them get stronger and better in so many of these games. Even in Game 4, look what happened. Edmonton led 1-0 after the first. Edmonton led 2-0 after the second. What ended up happening? 2-2 and rescued by Evan Bouchard in the final minute just to win that game 3-2. So I think not only a live Vancouver after the first period of Edmonton's leading, but a live draw maybe as well. A live draw. Because look, we got so close to overtime in each of the last two games. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll say you can bet it pregame if you want, but I'm going to wait to after the first period, see where we're at, because I do think Edmonton's going to be leading after the first, and if so, we might get a better price on it. I'm going to add the draw at some point if Edmonton's leading after the first period. So that's definitely going to be an approach for me as well here in this game. And it feels like we've been so close to overtime these last two games in this series, and plus we already had an overtime game earlier in the series, which was Game 2. And Game 1 was that crazy comeback that almost went to overtime, and then Game 2 did. So the draw, I think, might be worth a look too, especially, and you're going to get a better price on it if you wait till after the first period, if indeed Edmonton's leading. And then as far as props go for this game, I mean, in a big game, how do you not turn to JT Miller like we've talked about? Brock Besser, he's shown up in these elimination games. Look what he did against Nashville in the first round. Brock Besser's someone you can count on in an elimination game. And for Edmonton, look, as far as the goal, I could see Adam Henrique actually doing something.
I think Ian's computer froze again, so just getting back to that. I'm waiting for him to come back in a little bit. Yep. Good.
Yeah, Adam Henrique is back in the lineup. Just take a small flyer on him maybe to contribute. Nugent Hopkins, just because of his position in the lineup, there's value. I'm a little leery with McDavid's shots on goal, but holy shit, if there's ever a spot he's going to just let the puck rip, it's got to be tonight. Facing elimination, backs against the wall. He's been very reluctant to shoot the puck. He's also gone, I think, under shots on goal more often than not. So I think when you look at the situation, it's not like you can have the utmost faith he's going to go over, shots on goal. But I think you feel, Henrique's out. Okay, so they're not going to make that change. We'll wait on that. But McDavid over shots, I'm still going to take it here in this game. I still like that look, no question. And look, I'm going to go back to the two defensemen that have found the back of the net at least once in this series. Zadorov for Vancouver at these crazy prices, and also Matthias Ekholm for Edmonton, who we have seen score goals in multiple games in this. Remember, he had a goal in the first 3 games in the series, Matthias Ekholm. So I still think he's worth a look as well if you're looking for a bargain bin type flyer in the goal prop market as well. It's definitely, to me, is a good Artur Shelov's saves prop night, in my opinion. I think Artur Shelov's over saves for Vancouver is probably going to be worth a look tonight as well. Edmonton's got to throw the kitchen sink at him. And they've done that in a few games in this series. I think maybe, it could be Gagne, maybe not Henrique. We'll have to wait and see on that. But we'll see. I mean, I'm looking to, believe it or not, sprinkle a few bucks on whoever's taking Perry's spot for Edmonton. If it's Gagne, then we'll take Gagne. If it's Henrique, and it seems like maybe it won't be now, but it would be Henrique. Anyone who's taken that spot. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, Edmonton first period puck line and those SGPs are what I am looking at. If I don't like the pace early and I'm worried about it, maybe I try to hedge these SGP positions with a live over. But like I said, I just think it's going to be like Game 4, where it's going to be a little tighter than people think, and they're going to rally around Skinner here and help him out and just block more shots, be more sound, box out, clear the front of the net, all those little things you have to do defensively. They did it for Pickard in Game 4. I think that could be an approach they look to take here tonight as well for Skinner in Game 6 to help give him his confidence back. And nothing gives the goalie confidence too is when the team helps him out with a solid defensive effort. All right, great stuff. That should be a great game tonight. We're looking forward to it. The only game on tap. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Programming alerts. No show tomorrow, obviously, with no games, so we'll be off Sunday. We will not have a show Monday if this series ends tonight with Vancouver and Edmonton. If the series ends tonight, we will be off on Monday as well. So we could have 2 straight days without a show. If there is a Game 7 for Vancouver and Edmonton, then we will be on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And last but not least, we have a couple of BetCast announcements to make. We will have, for sure, a BetCast Wednesday night for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final, New York Rangers, Florida Panthers. We're very much looking forward to that. The way it's going to be is, look, I don't want to guess when the West Final's starting, so we're going to make the East Final the free-for-all betcast, the public betcast this week. We're going to do one free-for-all betcast this week, and then we're also going to do a betcast. It's going to be a back-to-back nights of betcasts for the Ice Guys this week. We're going to have the Eastern Conference Final Wednesday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. I think all the games are going to be 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time at night in this round, now that we're down to the standalone one game per night conference final.
In the early in the series, I think there actually is a Game 3 in the East that's a Sunday day game.
Exactly. You're right. There's that one that's ABC for ABC purposes. They put it at 3 p.m. Eastern on a Sunday. But yeah, so 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, we will be here with a Eastern Conference Final Game 1 live betcast Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for Rangers Panthers, and we will also have a betcast. This one will be Patreon exclusive. We will also have a betcast for Canucks or Oilers versus the Dallas Stars, Game 1 of the Western Conference Final, which will, as of right now, it will either be Tuesday or Thursday. Western Final will likely start Tuesday if the Canucks Oilers ends tonight, and it'll start Thursday for sure if the Canucks Oilers goes to Game 7. That's what I'm hearing. But either way, whether it's Tuesday or whether it's Thursday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, we will have a Western Conference Final Game 1 Ice Guys live betcast, and that one will be Patreon exclusive.
Now, I was going to say, and we could just make it Thursday regardless, because we know if we're going to have either Game 1 of Oilers and Stars, or it could be Game 2
That's true,
of Canucks and Stars. So we could make it Thursday and then just be a fixed day and go with that too. So
actually, that's a good idea because it's a long weekend here, and I've got stuff today, stuff tomorrow going on. Monday, I'll be out for a little bit of the day. Tuesday, I'll be able to kind of rest up and be ready for Wednesday and Thursday. And to have to do the betcast Tuesday after a busy-ass long holiday weekend.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
So maybe we should do that.
Good idea. Great idea. Yeah. See, we're planning shit live on the air here. That's great. You don't need to always do it behind the scenes. That's probably what we'll do. We'll do Wednesday, Eastern Conference Final Game 1. That'll be the first betcast, free for all. Rangers Panthers at MSG. And then Thursday, regardless of whether it's Game 1 or Game 2 of the Western Conference Final, we'll be on the air with you, 8 p.m. Eastern, Patreon exclusive. So there you go. Wednesday, Thursday, live betcasts this week for the conference finals. Looking forward to it. So there you go. Wednesday, Thursday. Make your plans right now to join us. Looking forward to those for sure. All right, we got bargain bins. Oh, by the way, patreon.com/Ice Guys, $10 per month. And again, one of these betcasts this week will be Patreon exclusive, the West Final, Game 1 or Game 2 betcast, whichever game it is Thursday night in the West, it's Patreon exclusive. So the only way to tune in and join us, sign up, $10 per month, patreon.com/Ice Guys. You get our daily sides totals and player props posted on the page as well, goalie charts, totals charts, and more. Tons of bonus content coming in the off season, the resumption of the Players Suite, interview series, all that and more in the offseason. We're probably going to do our free agency show for Patreon members only as well for a rarity. So there you go. Another incentive right there. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. And again, access to all our Patreon exclusive live betcasts, including the West Final betcast Thursday night this week. And of course, check out the Ice Guys store. Get your gear and your merch at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Yeah, we've got everything in stock right now. I actually got some caps that are on the way here on Monday. So we got all the caps, the T-shirts, the hoodies, even though it's not really hoodie weather. We got everything right now at iceguys.myspreadshop.com. All
right, great stuff. We got bargain bin special of the night and best bet for Vancouver Edmonton Game 6 coming up right after we hear from our great sponsors. All right, Boston Hemp Inc. Make sure you check them out. Get 20% off all orders on the website using the promo code ICEGUYS at bostonhempinc.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night. Just one game on the docket to choose from, Alex. Vancouver, Edmonton, Game 6. What do you like in that bargain bin?
I find it interesting that since we've been on the show, FanDuel has locked their anytime goal scorers like 3 different times. That's interesting. Thankfully, I already bet it because it was unlocked earlier. So I have Nils Hoglander plus 440 at FanDuel. That is my anytime goal scorer bargain bin special for tonight. Still on the top line based on what I'm seeing. So I think he could be one of those guys. When you have these clinching games, right, it just always seems like there's someone who's not just the household name that gets a goal, right? Like I wouldn't look at a McDavid. I wouldn't look at a Draisaitl or even a Hyman for Oilers. I wouldn't look at a Miller or Garland necessarily for any kind of props. I'm kind of, looking for the guys who just, go a little bit under the radar. I think Nils Hoglander can be one of those guys. So plus 440, my bargain bin special for Game 6.
It's funny you mentioned that, Nils, and I like that pick, Nils Hoglander, someone we've used before on bargain bin special this year, upwards of plus 570 over at Patano here in Ontario. Wow. Just a tremendous price there for him to find the back of the net. But you're right, I like his effort. I think he got a boost from, he sat for a game or two, put back in the lineup by Tocchet last game. I think that gave him some juice. And again, he's with the all-Swedish line with Pettersson and Lindholm. So I like that as far as a bargain bin special of the night is concerned for Alex. I am going to go with a little bit of a down-the-board player as well. He finished Game 2 with Evander Kane and Leon Draisaitl for Edmonton. This kid's worked hard. I've seen him going to the net. He hasn't been rewarded for it yet. I believe actually he did get a goal, I think, very early in the series. I'm going to take a real shot here. Plus 700 at FanDuel, 700 at MGM. 750 is the high water mark at Patano. We're going to go with Dylan Holloway for the Edmonton Oilers. Playing on that second line, a young kid. He played at Wisconsin in college, and he's been noticeable for the Oilers. And he keeps giving that effort. In my opinion, he could find the back of the net tonight. And again, he's going to get that opportunity with Draisaitl and Kane, second line duty for the Edmonton Oilers tonight, at least based on what we see the lines constituted as of right now. So Dylan Holloway, Edmonton Oilers, plus 750 for my bargain bin special of the night. All right, best bet for Vancouver, Edmonton. Alex, what do you like?
Well, it's the one bet I have. The Canucks I got plus 170, but I still like it here. We'll call it plus 160. I think this is where Vancouver, steps up, shows they're the better team, takes care of business early, getting goals, taking the air out of that crowd, taking the air out of this Oilers bunch, and making them wonder, is this the same old shit we do every single year? I'm thinking yes. So give me the Canucks money line. That is my best bet for Saturday.
All right, Vancouver to finish it off. And remember, all Game 6 road teams here in the second round have finished the series. The Rangers, the Panthers, the Stars. Can the Vancouver Canucks follow suit? Alex says yes. Vancouver plus upwards of 170 for his best bet. My best bet is, it's the other side, but it's not full game. We're taking Edmonton minus a half, plus 150, first period puck line. Let's get the best of both worlds. And hey, we saw it with Rangers, Hurricanes. We saw it with Bruins, Panthers. Team facing elimination at home led after the first period, lost the game both times. Let's see if it can happen again tonight, and we'll both be happy. Edmonton -0.5, plus 150 for me. First period puck line for my best bet. That'll wrap it up. Again, we're off tomorrow for sure. Might be off Monday if there's no Game 7 in Vancouver and Edmonton. But either way, we'll see either Monday or Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern time for our next edition of the Ice Guys. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. On the way out, a reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday or Tuesday for another edition of the Ice Guys.